Today I'm showing you how to read food labels so that you can track your calories and make healthier choices. There are several different elements of a food label. In the UK, we have something called a traffic light system, which is the information on the front. This is supposed to tell you how healthy a food is. It's labelled either green for good, yellow for not too bad, and red for bad. However, I don't suggest you look at this because a lot of high-fat foods are also some of the most nutritious foods that we do need for good nutrition. So I suggest you don't look at the colours on the front of the packet at all. Instead, look at the side of the packet that will give you the ingredients list and the food label. Here's the ingredient list and here's the food label. On food labels, we can't tell the exact quantities of each ingredient listed. However, we do know that the ingredients are in the order of quantity. The ingredients that are the largest are at the front of the label. This helps you get an idea of what the main ingredients are in a packet. So let's look at this food label here. The first ingredient is sugar. So we can tell that this item is mostly made up from added refined sugar because sugar is the first ingredient. Sugar is also the second ingredient because glucose syrup is a liquid version of sugar. Companies will often try to make it look like the food doesn't contain so much sugar by using multiple different types of sugar, which all have different names. And did you know that there are actually 75 different names for sugar? And here they are, so you can recognize what some of them are. In addition to the ingredients list on the back of the packet, we will also see a nutritional label. This breaks down the number of calories, the macronutrients, the fat, the carbs and the protein. Some ingredients label will tell you some of the micronutrients, but none of them will tell you all of the micronutrients. You can see the calories because they are the numbers before the letters kcal. When a nutritional label shows you the nutrition per 100 grams, that is a true reflection of what is actually in the product. However, if it is normal to add another ingredient to the product, some portion sizes will show nutritional information with another ingredient added. For example, the information for cereal is often shown with the milk added to it. This means you can't compare 100 grams to the portion size accurately. Occasionally, healthy products will highlight some of the micronutrients in the product, such as smoothies and juices. They will tell you how much vitamin C is naturally occurring in the product, for example. There is a difference between nutrients that are naturally occurring in the ingredients and synthetically added vitamins and minerals. You can tell if a product has had synthetic nutrients added to it because they will be listed in the ingredients list as separate ingredients. If a nutrient is naturally occurring, it won't be added in the ingredients list. When you are looking at the listed macros are carbs, fats and proteins. The most important macro to look for is the protein content. And this is because protein isn't as easily stored in the body as carbs and fats. Therefore, the body has to look to your food sources for additional protein, and it will keep you hungry until you have consumed enough protein. So that is why focusing on keeping your protein levels high enough will help you more when it comes to losing weight. So how do we know if a product contains enough protein to make it worthy of our consumption? If a protein is over 10 grams per 100 calories, it's a decent amount of protein. Anything over 20 grams of protein per 100 calories is high in protein. The higher it is in protein per 100 calories, the more it's going to fill you up and the less calories it consumes for that protein amount. But if, however, the food label only contains fruit and veg, you do know it's still a fairly healthy product. But it's still not as healthy as fruit and vegetables themselves because the ingredients will have been processed in some way to make it into a branded packet and some of the nutrients will be lost. So now let's look at the calories and the portion sizes. To calculate the calories in the product, you need to look at the suggested portion sizes. For example, you might assume that one portion would be a whole bar of chocolate if the bar is quite small, but sometimes the calories advertised are for a lower portion size than you would expect. For example, this product is showing you that the calories for one portion are only actually half a bar of chocolate. If the product is already portioned out, such as a pie, a bar or a cake, it makes sense to look at the number of calories per serving. However, if the product is not already portioned out, you need to determine your own serving size. For example, in a pot of low-fat Greek yogurt. It might make more sense to look at the calories per 100 grams of the product, because it would be natural to eat around 100 to 150 grams of yogurt per serving. So this low-fat Greek yogurt is low in calories and high in protein, because if we had 100 grams, it would only be 63 calories and we would get a whopping 10 grams of protein. If we eat the suggested serving size, 95 calories for 150 grams of yogurt, and that gives us 15 grams of protein, which is really good. So you have to guess at how much of a product you will be eating in a portion. For yogurt, we might eat 100 grams at a time, but we may only eat 30 grams of cheese per portion, or 10 grams of a sweet chili sauce on top of a burger, or 10 grams of butter on a slice of bread, and this can take some trial and error. If you stick to the principle of eating no more than around 200 calories from multi-ingredient packaged food that aren't high in protein, it doesn't matter about the breakdown of fats, carbs and protein, as it generally won't be as good for your health as eating single ingredient food. A product that has a food label and is high in protein per 100 calories will be a good food to base your diet on. All other foods containing long ingredients list, as a general rule, should be limited to small portions. So you might be wondering, okay, good, I know how to look at the calories per serving and the calories per 100 grams now on the food label. But how do I know if packaged food is healthy? How do I know if any food is healthy? So I'm going to give you a checklist, some questions that you can ask yourself to determine whether a product is healthy or not. So here's the first question. When you look at a packet, first of all, ask yourself the following question. Is the food in a fairly natural state? And natural means that it has been picked from the land and the edible parts are still intact, or it's been cut or extracted out of an animal and it hasn't been tampered with apart from a form of preservation. Most of the time it doesn't even have an ingredient list because it's just one ingredient, and you would probably be able to eat this food in nature with the use of some tools without the use of factory machinery. And good examples of food in their natural state are fruit, veg, yogurt, milk, cheese, meat, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, whole grains, coconut, beans, lentil and peas. Most oils, flour, sugar and powders are not in their natural state and require a lot of processing. So if you can answer yes, that food is in its natural state, then it is a nutritious food which is good to make a staple part of your diet. If, however, you answer no, then you need to go to question number 2. Question number 2 is, does the food contain more than 10 grams of protein per 100 calories? And if the answer is yes, then this is a higher protein food which is good to make a staple part of your diet. If the answer is no, then you need to limit foods in this category to no more than 200 calories per day in total. So let's go through some examples. Frozen cherries. Is the food in a fairly natural state? Yes, cherries can be eaten in nature, and there are only cherries listed on the ingredients list, so this can be a diet staple. Bread. Is the food in a natural state? No. There are many items on the ingredients list and bread doesn't exist in nature. So then we go to question 2. Does the food contain more than 10 grams of protein per 100 calories? No, it doesn't. We can see on the ingredients list that the serving size is 116 calories and the protein is 4.3 grams, nowhere near 10 grams. If the serving size contained 200 calories, what we would need to do is divide that by 2 and divide the protein by 2 as well. You don't need to be exactly precise with this, just a rough estimate is good enough. So now that we've determined that bread is not a high protein food, we can limit this food to no more than 200 calories of anything in this category. That means that you could eat, say, 1 slice of bread and have around 100 calories left for a small chocolate bar, and all other calories that day should come from natural foods or lean protein sources. Now let's look at the next food. Cooked formed chicken breast. First question, is the food in a natural state? I am actually not sure. This product looks natural, but there is a fairly long ingredients list which doesn't look healthy. And I don't know whether this is actual chicken breast or if it's chicken breast blended up, mushed up, combined with other food and then formed again to look like a chicken breast. And seeing as it's called cooked formed chicken breast, then I am assuming it is formed, which means it has been mushed up and now it's reformed to look like a chicken breast. So let's move on to question number 2. Does the food contain more than 10 grams of protein per 100 calories? And yes, we can see per 100 grams, there's 128 calories, and there is a whopping 27 grams of protein, which is a massive amount of protein per 100 calories. So this can be a staple food in your diet, as it is a lean protein source. Despite there being quite a few other ingredients on the food label, most of the ingredients are made up from lean protein. And we can tell this because the calories are low and the protein is high. If the calories were high and the protein were low, that would mean it would be made up from other things, not protein, like maybe sugars or grains. Now let's look at a very similar product, just so we can compare the difference. Crispy chicken breast strips. It's still chicken breast, but it's coated in some kind of breadcrumbs. So let's have a look at this. Question number 1. Is the food in a natural state? I'm actually not sure, because just like the previous one, I know it's going to be containing some kind of protein, but I don't know how much protein. I don't know how natural this is. I don't know whether you could create this in nature. The product sounds natural, but there is a fairly long ingredients list which doesn't look healthy to me. So let's look at the second question. Does the food contain more than 10 grams of protein per 100 calories? So let's have a look at the serving size. It recommends you eat a quarter of the pack, which would be 226 calories and 15 grams of protein. Because they've given us over 200 calories, as a serving size, we are going to divide that by 2. It doesn't need to be exactly right, but if you divide that roughly by 2, that is 113 calories. And because we've divided the calories in 2, we also need to divide the protein in 2. So 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So it's not past the test of having more than 10 grams of protein per 100 calories, but it is on the higher end, but it still doesn't pass the test. So we are going to limit this food to no more than 200 calories of everything in this category. And although this isn't a high protein source, this processed packaged food item is still a better choice than a lower protein packaged processed food such as sweet treats or a dessert, because it does still contain some protein, so it will be more filling than something without any protein at all. Now let's look at another example, an Alpro plant protein yogurt type thing. First question, is the food in a natural state? And the answer is no. Although this looks like a yogurt, it did not come out of a cow in a natural way. It is not made from natural milk, but it's made from beans. But hang on, beans are natural, but do they look like this in nature? No, beans don't look like yogurt in nature. To make beans look like yogurt, they have to be heavily processed and blended with a variety of other ingredients. So the answer is no. Second question, does the food contain more than 10 grams of protein per 100 calories? So let's have a look. The suggested serving size is 100 grams. In 100 grams, we've got 82 calories and 7.5 grams of protein. So the answer is no. So we need to limit this food to no more than 200 calories of everything in this category. And although this is not a very high protein source, this processed packaged food item is still a better choice than a lower protein packaged food, such as desserts, because it does still contain quite a bit of protein, so it will be more filling. Now here's another myth that I want to squash. A lot of people think that if something's natural, they can eat unlimited amounts of it, and that's not true. No natural food should be eaten in unlimited quantities. Everything requires balance in your diet. There are loads of natural foods that are very high in calories that will lead to weight gain if you eat too much of them. Foods like nuts, seeds, cheese, butter, avocados, coconut, olives, and fatty meats do give us certain nutrients that we do require. And although we can eat them every single day because they are natural, they are healthy, they contain nutrients, we still have to fit them into our calorie budget. So we have to limit the amount of these foods that we eat per day. And that means small portions of these foods. That means weighing and measuring them. So eating for health and eating for weight loss can be two separate things. They don't always come together, but we can focus on both at the same time, as long as we choose to base our diet mainly on natural foods and at the same time eat under our calorie budget. Here's another thing that trips a lot of people up, and this is marketing claims. Marketing claims are labels on the front of a packet that might say things like low fat, low in calories, low in sugar, high in protein. And although these might be true, what they are doing is comparing this type of product to another similar type of product in the same category. So although one yogurt might be higher in protein than another, it doesn't mean it's high enough in protein for it to feature as a regular part of our diet. So if we look at the Alpro plant protein yogurt alternative that's making the claim of being rich in protein, and we compare it to the Skyr yogurt that also says high in protein, we might think they're very similar. We might think they are two high in protein sources, but this is not true. If we look at the nutritional label and we look at the amount of calories per 100 grams, the calories in the plant yogurt is way higher and the protein is way lower. Just because something is labeled high protein doesn't mean it actually is. There are often more natural versions of that same food which are much richer in protein, which are much lower in calories, but they just don't have the marketing claims. The healthiest and most nutrient-rich foods out there are the ones that don't contain any food label at all, and they don't get a marketing budget behind them to promote them, and that's why I'm promoting them to you now. Or maybe they do have a food label and it just contains one ingredient. So examples of these are fruit, vegetables, plain yogurt, plain cheese, milk, cream, meat, fish, oats, rice, beans, lentils, peas, nuts, seeds, eggs, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, leaves, coconut, olives. Those foods often don't have food labels, and I'll explain to you in a second how to measure these types of foods. There are other types of foods that add flavour but hardly contain any calories, so you don't really need to track them at all. And these are things like herbs, spices, garlic, ginger, chilies, lemongrass, vinegar. These are not going to be diet staples. You're not going to eat massive quantities of them. They're just added in small portions to increase the flavour of your foods. The thing that makes packaged food so convenient is it's already separated out into portion sizes. And a lot of the time, you don't even need to do any weighing, any measuring, because it's very easy to grab and go. And this is why we're struggling with our health, because it's just too easy to eat packaged food. But I'm trying to encourage you to eat more natural foods, and when you eat natural foods, you do still have to measure them, otherwise you'll eat too much of them. So what we need to do with natural foods is we need to weigh them using some food scales. If you don't have any food scales, I highly recommend jump on Amazon, go to your local supermarket and buy yourself a pair of food scales. They are very cheap, and you will be using them every single day if you eat healthy and you're sticking to a calorie budget. Mine live in a top drawer, and as soon as I get any food out, the scales go on the surface and the food goes on the scales. It takes an extra couple of seconds, and it's well worth it because then you know exactly how much food you're eating and you don't overeat. So there are two ways to measure food. The first method is you turn your scales on, make sure your unit of measurement is G, which stands for grams. You add your plate or your container to the food scales, then you press 0 or tear button. What this does is it removes the weight of the item that you put on the scales and it resets the amount back to 0. This means you are only weighing the food item and not the container. Once your scales is at 0, place the food item onto the scales and it will show the weight. If you don't know how many calories are in the food item, you can either just type into Google number of calories in certain number of grams in certain number of foods. So for example, number of calories in 50 grams of oats. Or you can use the Chronometer app, the free app, which tells you the calories by looking up the item and typing in the number of grams. Just make sure you choose G from the serving size list in Chronometer. And the second method of weighing food is useful when a food is high in calories and difficult to remove from a container because it's hard or sticky. Items such as butter, peanut butter, honey, spreads, or any high-fat foods such as cheeses, this is a good method to use. So add the original food container to the scales, such as adding a jar of peanut butter, and then if it's got a lid, take the lid off. Then press 0 or tear button to 0 the calories. Then take out the quantity that you need. It will show in minus amounts. Convert this to a whole figure. For example, if you take out 10 grams of peanut butter from a container, it will register as minus 10 on the scales. So just take away the minus, and that is 10 grams of peanut butter, which you can add to whatever you want after that. You can also use measuring cups to measure food, and this is useful for small quantities of food, such as herbs, spices, nuts, seeds, oils, and flours. And if you want to know how to use the Chronometer app, you want to get your personal calorie budget and get some meal plans, including nutritionally complete meal plans, then join my 6-week shred, because I give you all of this and more in there. At the moment, it's on offer, but soon the price will be rising, so get in there while you can. And now it's time to turn your struggles into mental strength to help you stick to your plan.